Platinum blonde. Platinum blonde, yeah.
Hi, are you putting the zoning board on the TV tonight or no? Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah, we're set to go. Thanks, bye.
You guys ready?
We're ready.
Microphones are on. I think we're going to be, there we go, we're on the air. Okay. No Dan tonight. We're flying solo.
Mike's not here either, so.
And Mike's not here. Okay, welcome to the Newmarket Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting for Monday, September 24th, 2018. And our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sue has on our agenda the review and approval of the minutes of last week's meeting, but there are none.
I motion that we accept the minutes as transmitted.
so we're gonna pass agenda item number 2 and skip right to agenda item number 3. This is our regular business item. This is a continuation of the public hearing of the application of Donald Eves III for a special exception from section 32-234 of the Newmarket zoning ordinance and a variance from section 32-234B to allow an accessory apartment in an existing detached structure. The property is located at 21 Bald Hill Road, tax map R7, lot 19-7 in the R1 zone. And for the record, we did have a site visit on Saturday. We were there for probably around 20 minutes. I think we were all there. And there was no formal discussion of the application among ourselves, but we did take a good look around the property, and Mr. Eves was kind enough to host us. So I think what I'd like to do is, first thing is, Mr. Eves, if you have anything you want to add, just give you an opportunity based on the site walk. If there's anything you want to add to the application at this time, you don't have to, but I'm happy to give you a chance to do so at this time.
No, is there anything I could present to you that can, I guess, help at this point?
I think we'll find that out in a second, once we have a chance to, once we open up our discussion and start talking about the application some more among ourselves. There's something else that was added to the file, which is the, what looks like the building permit. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Was added to the file in the meantime that showed the original configuration of the lot and the location of the septic and other information. So that was added to the file as well in the meantime. So open up the floor for discussion at this time, further discussion of the application. I think the issue that got us hung up primarily was hardship, and that's why we wanted to get a look at the lot.
So I wasn't there.
Oh, you were not there at the sidewalk. I'm sorry. My mistake. I forgot.
I was just, so I'm going to be listening intently to figure out what you guys say.
Okay. Well, what we saw is the lot is quite large. It's a shade under 3 acres, if I remember right. It's like 2.96 something.
That's right.
Mr. Eves told us the other day. It's quite a large lot. It is the front of it, the road side of it, is largely level, going down to the road, and then it drops off towards the back of the property. But it is originally it was 2 separate lots that are consolidated, so it's quite a large parcel. The well is off to the right as you face the building, and the septic is in the front left, just more or less as reflected on the site layout that we have. And that's the basic topography and configuration of it. It does drop off towards the back and to the left, and if I remember right, but it's basically level up to the house from what I saw. There is a bathroom currently in the outbuilding. Looks like it was initially a horse stable, probably. And there's a workshop in there, but there is a bathroom in there currently. I would say it's slightly below the level of the septic, a foot maybe, I don't know. But that's what we saw. So we were talking about the issue of hardship basically last time, and the issue of whether there's some unique condition on the property that makes it unique relative to others in the area, or distinguish it from other properties in the area. And that's what we, in my mind anyway, that's primarily what we were going there to take a look at. And just step right up to the microphone there, Wayne, so. No, you don't have to press the button. I just want you to be a little bit closer if you don't mind.
I'm assuming that you were somewhere in here, I read. It's about 800 square feet upstairs there.
Yes, it's, so I'd have to put in a knee wall there, but it's gonna be well within the parameters of the code or the ordinance.
So just assuming 800 square feet that you're looking for, what I noticed on the sidewalk is, so that's, if it was on one floor, that's 20 by 40. There's certainly room on either side of the house to build a 20 by 40 building. I know that's not what you're looking to do. I'm just looking and for address the hardship. I mean, it certainly could be done on either side. I would suggest as you look at the building on the left side, just because, and I know you have a concern about the rocks, but I don't think that's a concern. I think that's just a retaining wall. So I guess that's my feeling.
Now, I didn't attend the sidewalk, but I've driven by there many times around Johnson Drive and stuff, and there are a number of homes out there that have outbuildings. So his situation is not unique in that respect. Others that have buildings up there that they'd want to retrofit into apartments. And as far as the rocks out there, it's typical of New Hampshire.
Well,
it's a retaining wall. Or
that's what it was. The grade changes.
There are boulders on most of the lots out in that area.
So I don't.
If I may, of the abutting properties, there are no boulders that there isn't quite the slope or drop off that they'd have on the house like what I have there, which makes it unique.
Anything else, Wayne?
No, that's it.
If I had, looking at the project, I think that the accessory apartment can be made as part of the main structure. I don't think we got enough information where we can not follow through on that. And I've written up a couple of things, but I didn't write much on the unnecessary hardship because I wanted to hear what everybody else had to say. But I think that's a critical part of this particular case we're testimony is presented by the applicant without any conflicting evidence presented to the board, and drawing upon my knowledge of the area, the surrounding properties will not be diminished. But then again, if we go to 32.5B, I don't think the unnecessary hardship will ever be met, because he can either put that accessory apartment in the lower level in his house, or add on to the either side of the building. So I would think that, obviously, we wouldn't, do anything with substantial justice is done unless we agree on all the other four.
Okay.
That would be the only way we could do that.
James, do you have anything you want to add?
I think it's difficult because we have to take in, or we should go by what we're given based on the codes and based on what we have in our books. Really the only thing that I could see from is determined a hardship is the financial part of what he's saying is a hardship. And going by what's just in the book, I agree with both Wayne and Richie that it does look feasible from a construction perspective on both sides of the main dwelling. I can understand what he's saying with what would be considered a financial hardship, but based on what we have as guidelines, looking just at the structure itself, I don't see anything that would prevent that.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And going to the financial hardship side of things,
Mhm.
we can consider that. We have in the past.
Okay.
But they've got to present information on the financial hardship, what the estimated cost would be, and what that would amount to, a whole variety of things. So we'd have to have some data in front of us to consider that. Just stating that it's financial hardship is not evidence, it's just a statement.
Sure.
We had an applicant come in who wanted to build a number of condominium units or housing units or something, and he told us how much it would cost to build a road, but we had no pro forma, we had nothing other than his saying this is what it was going to cost. And we found in that instance that it was just not enough information.
Mm-hmm.
We're not. We don't normally inquire into people's financial wherewithal, but if they raise it as an issue, I think we're entitled to ask for the evidence.
That's my understanding of the way the rules are structured.
So, Richie, you said you had something?
I didn't put together anything on the unnecessary hardship.
Okay.
I wasn't feeling too good all weekend. I didn't divulge into that. I'm just reading from 32.5B, and I says with 32.5B, I don't think we can really allow it. At least that's my opinion. Because if you go to the spirit of the ordinance, if you go to it, I'm not making a motion or nothing.
Yeah.
The ordinance contains a restriction against a particular use of the land. The Board of Adjustment would violate the spirit and intent of the ordinance by allowing that use. While a single detached accessory apartment might not greatly affect the neighborhood in overall value, the addition of such projects might well be significant. For this reason, uses such as a detached accessory apartment would be inconsistent with the spirit of the ordinance.
Okay. Well, my feeling is consistent with what I've heard here.
Do you mind if I ask a question here? So when in I guess, accessory apartment is attached to a structure, is it required that you maintain or have a door or access to it from the internal structure?
Yes.
So with a bedroom on that side, with the well there, and then the garage blocking it, how would I then install a door then that takes you into that accessory apartment? And likewise on the other side, I've got the master bedroom and another bedroom there and bathrooms in the way that prevent me from putting a door to access it from the inside. How would I do that if that was the ruling?
There could be a door there, and it would, I believe, it could remain locked.
Yeah, it can.
Huh?
And it's just gotta go into the building. It's
Right.
just so that,
Into the building.
you know, it could go into the garage, as far as I'm concerned, it could go into the
Gotta go into the
garage.
building and remain
Just
locked,
says
but
there's
it's
a
gotta
door
be
that
there
goes
just
into
for
the
a
main
safety issue.
I mean,
I just, knowing the structure, I just don't know how that's feasible, that I could do that.
I don't know the details of what the building code requires, and that's not, I mean,
I'm somewhat confused by that door anyway. I've read that and I don't really know why they,
Well, I think
that's an issue.
my interpretation of it is that the main building is owner occupied. The accessory apartment is attached to it.
Yes.
So it's for the owner to be able to gain access. I mean, the origins of the accessory apartment was the mother-in-law apartment.
and that's fine if you had a door in between because
Correct.
it's your mother-in-law.
I
But
think that's
if
where,
you-
I think that's where the ordinance is driving.
But if in reality, if it was
A rental,
not your mother-in-law, it can remain locked.
okay.
Well, so the intent is actually for my mother-in-law, not that should be anything that should be considered here on whether the variance is requested or not. But with that being said, I mean, as you said, you know, it's that requirement is a little bit confusing on why you would need that door here. I feel the same way, the confusing necessity of why you would need to have you know, this very variance I'm asking for. It's confusing on its requirement. You know, you last meeting here, Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned that there's, you know, a stack of cases where we've hit that roadblock on the very reason I'm here, that ordinance, and how it's confusing to a lot of people and it's not very clear. So, I mean, whichever way you go, you're basing this based upon an opinion that's gonna either end up on a stack over here of confusion. I think the state should really take that ordinance back to its drawing board and revise it so it's clear on its reasoning.
Well, what we're dealing with is the law as it stands today, which is that there's got to be a demonstration of special conditions of the property to distinguish it from others in the area. And the primary thing we're looking at is whether there's some condition on the property that would make it a hardship to construct an apartment that is attached to the structure. In terms of the details of construction, in terms of whether there needs to be a door or where it needs to be, that's really not what we're here to decide tonight. If it's ever within our jurisdiction to decide that, that's not what we're here to look at tonight. We need to take a look at the law as it stands today. There's the way the variance criteria are applied has changed over the years, and it's actually changed in the direction of making it easier for applicants to demonstrate hardship. It used to be virtually impossible. But the current state of the law is that it's still a burden that needs to be met, but it's not as high a burden. And the criteria for accessory apartments, there's a statute now where it's done by special exception rather than by variance, which is the way it used to be. But the fact remains, based on the evidence that we've had and what we observed in the site walk, that there is the capacity on the lot, in my judgment anyway, and I think in the view of some of the other folks here, that there is the ability to add the accessory apartment on the property. There's nothing inherent in the condition of the property that would make it an unusual hardship, an unnecessary hardship, and to make that a possibility. It might be easier to do it in a detached structure, but that's not the test that we apply. And we have to be mindful, as Richie says, of Section 5B and the purpose of, in general, not allowing accessory apartments and detached structures to avoid avoiding or evading or getting around the subdivision requirements. So that's what we're up against.
That,
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Norm.
that part of that part of the ordinance is local. You said that the state should do something about it. The state has done some things to relax that, but it's still a local jurisdiction that establishes that. In Durham, you could have a detached unit. Newmarket, you can't. That's something that's taken up through the planning board and the board of selectmen. They're the ones that gave us the rules that we're following. It's not the state of New Hampshire. And I think the state's been pretty good about giving us latitude to do with, on a community basis, what we wish. But it's not in our purview to make the rules. We just interpret them and try and apply the guidance we've got from court cases and things like that to the individual situation. So if you want the rules changed, it's the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board that have to initiate those changes. Is that correct?
Yeah. Wayne, did you want to?
Well, I want to say to you that I don't think I'm a big individual rights and property rights person. I believe that probably is one of our, I hold that very dear, and I do, and I sympathize with you. However, as a board, I just want to say what Bob just said. We look at the rules, and we have to interpret them and apply them accordingly. And for me, as though, as much as it goes against everything I believe you should have a right to do with your property, the rules don't apply, and I'm going to have to vote no, and that's the reason, because I'm following.
Well, before you vote, so you were looking for uniqueness as well, and so did any of you do of budded properties or within the area, how many of those had walkout basements like I do? There are none. All of them are bulkheads except for mine. Like I said, I'm gonna have to pour footers and the financial burden of having to do these, finding placement of the door so that it's code acceptable. It's a financial thing, and in order to make it fit within the spirit of the code, I mean, you're binding my hands here in a way that I don't know a way around. I mean, this isn't I've presented to you some unique properties of my property there, and I don't know how in the world that you don't pull those into I don't know how you are not seeing that as a meeting the intent of what's asking for.
I sympathize with you, but I'm looking at the ordinance. I can't change the ordinance. The ordinance is what it is. And I don't believe you qualify to put this accessory unit in the building and the other building. I think, in my opinion, it can be attached to the house or made part of the main structure and incorporated into the main structure. Beyond that, I would have to vote no, because there's no way in my mind that my vote would change.
Given what you said, and that you're here is mainly interpreters of the code. You had mentioned a board or so.
Of the ordinance.
Yeah, of the ordinance. You mentioned a board or a location that I could go to have maybe have the discussion about changing that. Who would that be, and can that be entered into the minutes so that I can?
Let me tell you something. They've been trying to change that rule in Newmarket for, I would say, more than 10 years,
But why has that been held up?
because they won't pass it.
Is it something that has to go on a ballot?
It goes to the planning board. If the planning board reads it for about 3 years, then it goes to the council to make it part of the ordinance, and they turn it down.
You can certainly
So,
appeal
so,
this.
so beyond that, it stays in the record.
What has been the board's general consensus on why
Well,
it's been
I'm just
turned
reading
down?
the ordinance. I interpret the ordinance as read. I don't make it, and I don't go looking to change the ordinance. And what's here is here. And that's what I'm looking at when we have these cases come before us.
I'm
And I
just curious
sympathize
what,
with you, but I think, as far as I'm concerned, my hands are tied, because it says right here, right here, it says, accessory apartments shall be prohibited. That's in another building. And off-site accessory apartments.
So that's why you need a variance, and that's why you need a
That's
special
why you need a
exception.
variance, and you've gotta, you gotta show where you got wetlands around your house, that the house is compacted where you can't move it, and there's nothing else. And when I looked at your site, I said, on the left-hand side of your road, today, you can put an addition on the side of that house, and that's convinced me. I'm not looking at what's gonna cost you. I'm looking at whether you can do it or can't do it. I mean, I'm looking at obviously, there'd be more of a financial hardship, but I'm looking at what you can do and what you can't do, and that's what makes up my mind. But other than that,
so
I
I
don't
heard,
think
And I want to be clear, the decision would be the same if the person who owned your house had all the money in the world. The decision would be the same. I understand it's a hardship, I hear you, but we can't make decisions, particularly in the absence of any specific information, just based on everybody has a hardship, and I'm not meaning any disrespect whatsoever. It's a hardship for anybody to put an addition on their house. And it's a very difficult, everybody who comes in says it's a hardship, it's very expensive for me to do it this way, so I want to do it in some other way that's inconsistent with the code. That's something that we consider, but it's not, unfortunately, what we have to do here, it's not determinative in and of itself. We have to look at what the law is and what the code provides and pay attention to that.
And that's what I was trying to get at earlier too, is that while it may be a financial
you're not
hardship,
the first one to come before this board with the same issue.
So
We've had a few of them.
if you have options, if you're dissatisfied, and Diane can explain this to you in detail, but basically you ask for a rehearing, and then you can take an appeal to Superior Court. And if the court tells us we're wrong, then we're wrong.
We gotta vote on a few things first.
Yeah, we have to vote first, but that's, so you don't have to accept what we tell you. You can ultimately you can go to court, and the court can tell us that we're wrong.
Hey, it's 30 days of a rehearing.
Yeah, and Dan will have all the details of how that works.
Yeah.
So I think we need some kind of a motion.
so because of work and such, 30-day appeal will be not something I can do, but I do plan on appealing this.
Okay. You should talk to Diane to get the details
Okay.
of exactly what you need to do. First thing you need to do is ask for a rehearing, and then I think you have 30 days after the decision on that. But again,
And if he presents new evidence at
New
that,
evidence, correct.
at
Correct.
that rehearing, that convinces us to go the other way,
We can reopen the hearing.
yes, and we'd be glad to. Believe me, none of us feel good about this.
so what I'll,
I think he had a question that we left unanswered.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Of
go ahead.
who, if we
ruled against, who he would be able to speak with. Would that be like planning board? Would that be council?
I would just start with Diane.
Oh, Diane. Okay.
Ask Diane what your options are. She's our full-time planner. This is what she does all day, every day. She works with the planning board.
Well, understanding that I came from an area in South Carolina from moving up here, and
Yeah.
my function was procedures, and at the nuclear plant, I like to understand the processes of how they come into being, and then understand what the options for allowing for change of
Yeah.
nonsensical procedures.
I just think your best option to find out details, I just talk to Diane. Because she works with the planning board, she's been here for years, and she'll be able to tell you the details of all that stuff.
Yeah, she deals with getting the zoning ordinances changed and reviewed.
Right.
And they did a master plan review, and they've made some edits to the zoning ordinance just recently.
Yeah.
So she's very familiar with the actual steps.
So at this point, I'll, taking everything into account, I'll entertain a motion that we deny the variance based on failure to satisfy criterion 2, which is the spirit of the ordinance being observed, and based on the information in the record, failure to satisfy the unnecessary hardship criteria, specifically that the property is not distinguished from other properties in the area, and that there'll be no unnecessary hardship if the variance is denied, and that the remaining criteria, that being 1, 3, and 4, are satisfied based on the record presented. This is in the variance application now. Rich, does that sound okay?
You got that written down, or did you?
I'm just straight off the top of my head.
Did you? I know you can repeat it, you're an attorney.
Yeah. Well, it's in the record.
Okay,
Sue can listen to it 4 or 5 times.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will second that motion.
Okay?
We're voting on the variance.
The variance.
Right, okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
All those opposed? Okay, now we should take up the special exception. And
I make a motion, we deny this special exception because he doesn't meet all the conditions with the variance not being granted.
okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Any new or old business to come before the board at this time?
Sorry.
Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Seconded.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.